Greetings, friends. I'm Catherine from Britain Yearly Meeting, and I'm at the moment in Burundi, in Bujumbura, and I'm with David Niyonzima, who is going to tell us his story of how injustice in the past has caused harms in the present. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much. Amahoro. Amahoro, that's the word for peace. It's a word of greetings in Burundi. Burundi is a small country in Central Africa, or what we call now East African Community. North is Rwanda, west is Congo, east is Tanzania. I come from the Friends Yearly Meeting of Burundi. I grew up in that tradition because my father is one of those first members of the Friends community, because he saw the missionaries coming in 1934. You can imagine that I grew up in this good, wonderful tradition in which I came to appreciate the Quaker values very much. Burundi is known as a country of 12 million with Hutus, Tutsis, and Twas. And yet, we're also known as a country that has had a lot of violence. This violence, we really accredit them to the colonial powers that led the country. For example, 1890, German colonized the country with harsh leadership, including making wars to the king and obliging, for example, the king of Burundi, Mwezi Gisabo, to pay 424 heads of cows and make the road from west to east and many other things. And in 1923, after the World War, the First World War, the League of Nations mandated Burundi to the Belgians. When they came, they also were not good colonial power because they also installed harsh conditions for the country. And one of the strategy to divide and conquer the country was to set up a school in Rwanda. So at that time, it was Burundi. Rwanda and Burundi is just one country. And at that time, mostly the Tutsis were privileged to go to school so that they come and be the leaders. In other words, they elevated the Tutsis over the Hutus. But that, of course, meant that they created a struggle of power between the two ethnic groups.
And how did this impact on you and your family? How did that those colonial powers have and the violence in particular, how did it impact on you?
Well, the violence based on the power of struggle, on the struggle of power or for power, meant that Tutsis who were educated were perceived as a threat to the leadership of Tutsis. And for example,
the Hutus who were educated,
the Hutus that were educated. For example, my brother who was in high school got assassinated in 1972. And that affected the whole family, particularly my father, my sister, and myself, because this was my brother, and it was very hard to accept and to manage. It was so very traumatic. I remember that my father lived in traumatic conditions, and until I think his heart conditions got worse, and he died early. Then it was not only that 1972 violence. It continued in many other years. For example, in 1988, But again, another massacre was in 1993. And at that time, the Burundi president got assassinated. The Hutu elected president got assassinated by the Tutsi-dominated army, and therefore people killed one another. In fact, my name appeared on a death list, and I had to flee the country and live in Kenya. You can imagine how it was very, very traumatic. So yes, I was affected. It was very, very hard.
And that was replicated throughout the country for thousands of families.
Yes, yes. It was only on one family, but it was the whole country. And hence the stories of people flying from Burundi to Tanzania in most cases, and many other countries. Then even when peace returned, they came back and found their homes and properties occupied by others. So and that became also another big issue, which we really accredit to the legacy of suspicion and violence created by the colonial powers.
It's that legacy of suspicion that probably still lingers today. And how do you think it can be healed, and how can those relationships be repaired?
Yeah, that legacy of suspicion has become the intergenerational trauma. And we have an example of this 1993 crisis being perpetrated mostly by the children whose parents died in 72. So we think that the way to cut that vicious cycle is to promote forgiveness. I know this from my personal experience that when I forgave those who killed our loved ones, I felt as if a very heavy load fell off my shoulders, and are no longer sentiments of revenge that have had dominated many people. And that's why we are promoting the concept of forgiveness among Burundians, regardless of their ethnic identities. Then also the concept of Ubuntu, we think it's very, very important. It could be the solution to what's going on as the legacy of violence in our country, because the concept of Ubuntu says that we are human beings, all of us. In fact, I think it was Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu who said the concept of Ubuntu means you are because I am. I am because you are. And therefore, once you understand this and live that concept practically in our societies, in our communities, then I think we will overcome the triggers of violence and hatred that has existed in our communities in Burundi.
Thank you, David. Let's end on that positive note and a prayer for peace and forgiveness.
Thank you very much. Murakoze.